With all the 3D open-world madness of Breath of the Wild last year, it seems that the origins of the Zelda series, 2D exploration adventure games, has kind of been ignored. So today I'm going to look back at the 2D origins of the series and give my opinions on how the series could handle 2D entries in the future, if there will be any at all. So we can't talk about the future of the Zelda series without talking about Breath of the Wild. That game changes almost everything about what the series is and what it means. And Eiji Aonuma himself, the series director, has said that he wants the series to follow Breath of the Wild's direction change from the often restrictive Zelda formula to open-air freedom. If you want to know my general thoughts on what could happen to the Zelda series from now, check out the video I made with HMK and Commonwealth Realm by clicking the card or the link in the description. But why am I banging on about Breath of the Wild when we're talking about 2D Zelda? Pretty much, I think the 2D Zelda games can go one of three ways from here. Think of Breath of the Wild's launch as the ocarina of time in our world's timeline. We can go from here down the downfall timeline, where we'll get no more 2D Zeldas as a result of the series' directional change, the child timeline, where the 2D Zeldas will stay the same as ever, similar to A Link Between Worlds, or the adult timeline, where 2D Zeldas will change in accordance to how Breath of the Wild has impacted the series. Reading that back now makes me think maybe I shouldn't have used something as famously difficult to understand as the Zelda timeline to try and explain my thoughts, but whatever. So if Eiji Aonuma really does take the series in a direction following Breath of the Wild, including the 2D entries, what does that mean? The 2D games are all very formulaic, often more so than the 3D games. But Breath of the Wild took a gigantic Hetsu's gift on the Zelda formula. No traditional dungeons, no true compulsory main story, etc. So if a 2D Zelda were to follow this, how would it work? Well, if you watched the Making of Breath of the Wild series from Nintendo, you'll remember that when trying to realise very early ideas for the game, a 2D prototype was created, based on the very first Zelda, in order to get some ideas for the new game's mechanics on screen. Apart from being a really unique take on the standard 2D Zelda, this little development prototype got me thinking. What if a game along these lines were developed and released fully on the Nintendo Switch? A 2D Zelda with a gigantic, fully explorable, scrolling open world with no loading screens. This was actually the main idea behind the prototype, as art director Satoru Takezawa mentions that up to now both 2D and 3D Zeldas featured worlds that were created by connecting lots of smaller areas together. But this was only due to the technological limitations. And so when they were considering the technical requirements of building a big, unrestricted Zelda world, with seamless entering of houses, etc., they made a 2D prototype using Zelda 1 assets. This obviously wasn't a full game, but we can see some fantastic elements that we know and love from Breath of the Wild, but haven't properly seen in a 2D game yet, such as a working physics engine, or creative world-based puzzle solving like chopping a tree down near a river and using the floating trunk to cross, or fanning flames with a korok leaf to create a forest fire. You've probably seen this little development build before, like in the Making of Breath of the Wild video, but I still think it's really cool, like here. Just think about what just happened there. Link shoots an arrow through a campfire, igniting the arrow, which then burns the leaves from 2 trees. He then tries to use the korok leaf on the barren trunks, which we can see slightly affect them as they blow in the wind, but nothing really happens. Then he uses the sword to cut the trunks, leaving logs behind, just like in Breath of the Wild. And then he does the fire arrow trick again, lighting the logs, and then fans them into the river using the korok leaf, causing them to float down the river and set all the nearby trees on fire. I don't know about you, but personally I'd be a little underwhelmed going back to the restrictive Zelda formula after the blowout that was Breath of the Wild. Like, A Link Between Worlds is one of my favourite games just because it takes A Link to the Past's tried and true formula and opens it up a little more, with dungeons able to be completed in any order and items rented from Ravio. But seeing this development build, seeing what's possible for 2D Zelda, this seems a lot more fulfilling. Who's to say we can't have the standard Zelda dungeons and 2D gameplay we all know and love, combined with Breath of the Wild's intuitive physics-based puzzle solving and open world exploration? A 2D Zelda following in IG Aonuma's vision of future games being open-air experiences, where the world is gigantic, fully explorable and interactive, where dungeons can be beat in any order. I think this is the best possible way the top-down Zelda games can be revived and reinvented for today. Something to keep in mind is that with all the new Zelda players that have come to the series after playing Breath of the Wild, 2D Zelda is now retro Zelda. This isn't what Zelda is to them, this is. But I think a 2D entry to the series that carried over some of Breath of the Wild's innovations, in terms of survival, physics engine and gigantic world exploration, would be the perfect way to keep old school Zelda alive. What do you guys think will happen to the 2D Zeldas in the future? Could we see a Breath of the Wild-esque open world 2D game? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you liked the video, please drop a like and subscribe. And if you've got anything you'd like me to talk about in a video, tweet me at Zeltik. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time.